Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be looking at something I don't really talk about on this channel so much, but that's also because there's a lack of content for this on the channel, which is Fire Emblem. And historically Fire Emblem doesn't have a lot of figures, and the ones that they do have now are a little hit or miss, because they've been doing some scales lately, mainly Fire Emblem Heroes ones, and they have very similar box designs and things like that. And the figures are okay. Generally they look pretty good, but I don't think that they capture the characters, or at least not all of them capture the characters as they should. Like, I think Marth looks a little bit too rounded in the face and things like that. And then for Three Houses representation, the only figures we've got right now, besides the Byleth that we'll be looking at today, is the pop-up parades. And we all know how I feel about pop-up parades. So yeah, I won't be tackling those pop-up parades, but I will be looking at the scale figure of Byleth, and that's what we've got here today. Now you can see right from the get-go there's just a window into the figure, but a very, very simple box that, in all honesty, looks kind of crap. This is the design that they've been doing for the Fire Emblem Heroes scales as well, and I really don't like it. It's so bare bones, but it looks cheap and almost looks bootleggy. But right here we've got the official Nintendo seal, so we know it's legit. There's the Intelligent Systems logo down the bottom, as well as Fire Emblem up there, and Byleth's name down here. But thankfully, if you turn it to the side, we get some nice splash art of Byleth, and this is roughly what the figure should look like, but this is actually drawn art. And then on the back are promo images for the figure, which look much better, and as well as all the legal info. Now this is, I think it's made by Good Smile Company. I'm not too sure. It's a bit weird with the Fire Emblem stuff, unless it's made by Need. I always get confused who makes these ones, but it is produced, or at least distributed, by Good Smile Company, in association with Intelligent Systems, who are the developers of Fire Emblem. So there's not much to talk about in terms of the box, beyond it being kind of crap, but we might as well just open it up and have a better look at the figure. So here's Byleth out of the box, and she's looking pretty good. And obviously this is the female Byleth, as there is no male Byleth statue. Would have been interesting if you were given the choice, but that would have been pretty much an entirely separate figure, because their designs are so vastly different from each other. It works with things like amiibos, although I can't remember if they did an alternate one, but they did it with some of the older Fire Emblem amiibos. They did male and female versions, but it's different working with something on a small scale that doesn't need to be as highly detailed. Much different when you're doing much more expensive high-end scales, so they made the right choice and just went with female Byleth. And on first impressions, she looks really good. And while I didn't play Three Houses with female Byleth, I do like the design, and it was sort of more visually striking than male Byleth. And as I can see already, the sculpt is pretty damn good, and I think they've captured the character quite well. There are some interesting things that I noticed while assembling it, and I don't quite know why they went for it, but I guess we'll get into that when we get into that, starting with the sculpt of the figure. They've pretty much captured Byleth's look perfectly. I can't remember the hair color that well from the game, especially since I didn't do the female Byleth playthrough, but I feel like the hair color is just a little bit brighter than it should be. Again, should be evaluating sculpt first, but it's something that I noticed straight away. The hair is just on the cusp of not detailed enough for my liking, because the front fringe looks quite nice, but I think the hair on the sides looks a little bit too clumped together. but that might be more of an overspraying issue than it is a sculpt issue. But everything is looking pretty good. The crest on the chest looks nice. Her bust and top look good. The flow of her coat looks quite good as well. A lot of that's sculpted in detail, which is great. The gauntlet looks quite good, as well as the nails. That's good. The sword of the creator, I can't really remember what their sword was called, but Byleth's legendary sword looks really good. It's got the texture of like bone, and it's really well sculpted. It's not perfectly symmetrical or anything like that. It feels almost chaotic, which is great. I love that. Really, really well done. When we look more at her body, there's some beautiful sculpted in detail of the armor. The midriff looks good. The sculpt of the legs looks good as well. Surprisingly enough, this stocking detail is actually all sculpted. It's not just painted on, which is interesting. That greave looks good. The boots are pretty nice. And the base is really, really well done. It's all textured as well. It's not just painted to look like that, which is cool. There's quite a bit going on with this. There's a big flow of the coat back there and looks quite good. It helps separate the design quite a bit because it almost looks like one big overcoat when it's actually like a skirt and coat. That's pretty cool. A weird thing that I noticed is that the hand is posable and on a ball joint, which I think is just weird. I don't know. It's just a little bit bizarre, and it allows you to pose them in just slightly weird ways, like this. I don't know how to feel about that, really. And so I guess it lets you angle it around and get a better sort of shot out of it, but yeah, I don't know, it's just weird. I haven't really encountered that. I think I've encountered it before, but it's so infrequent that it's always weird. In terms of the actual pose, it's pretty good. It's a very standard dynamic pose. There is an alternate part that you can swap in, and I think it will like really liven up this stance a bit more, but right now it's like a sort of ready stance just about to start a strike, which is pretty cool and looks quite good. All of that sculpted in detail on the face and everything like that is great and helps lend to this looking like a good figure. In terms of paint, as I mentioned, not a big fan of the shade that they chose for the hair, but that might be that I just don't know the hair color for female Byleth. It is shaded and looks pretty good. Like I said, it's a bit oversprayed on the sides, so I don't think it looks the best. The crest is pretty clean. Looks good. The tassel's fairly well painted. It's a problem with the Byleth design, and not necessarily a problem with the figure because they just followed the design. There's a lot of grey and shades of grey, so it's not a very vibrant, colourful figure, which is a little bit of a shame. But I think they did a good enough job. This dagger is bright and colourful. The stockings are nice and well painted. I haven't noticed any issues on there. They're even shaded up the top, which is cool. The greaves are well painted and well detailed. I love the gloss. I love the mix of glosses, semi-glosses, and mattes. It's really good. It helps break up the figure quite a bit. The paint on the sword is pretty damn incredible, as you can see. The finish just looks so good. Looks like bone, which really sells you on the design. The boots look good with the extra shading. The skirt's quite nice. The skirt's quite nice and shaded as well. The top coat is shaded too, and it generally just looks really, really good. Can't really fault it on paint. Even the base is incredibly well painted. It is also broken up in multiple shades. You can see it sort of breaks down the middle, which is kind of weird, but also kind of cool. And yeah, just looks good. No real issues there. Yeah, it's just a really, really good paint. I should have talked about her face. The eyes are really well painted. The expression is neutral but good. I think it's just a very, very clean paint job on the face. I think they might have painted lipstick just a very, 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 very tiny bit, or I might just be seeing things, but I think that's good. Now, the main thing of this figure, like I said, it's sort of missing something, and that comes in the gimmick, which is you can swap out this arm for a different one, and you'll see what it looks like in just a moment. Now here's Byleth with the alternate sword piece, and this is the sword in its like actual attack form, which is sort of like Ivy's whip from Soul Calibur. And not only have they changed the colour, but they've completely resculpted this whole thing because it's whipped out and there's effect going around it. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the colour that they chose for it. It's a very bright yellow. It's meant to give off the effect that it's glowing. I think it's just a little bit off, but generally it sells the figure on the new design and really breaks up the colour because there was just way too much grey, because even the base was grey and a bit annoying, or a bit drab. And you can just see there's some beautiful folds in this weapon. Looks pretty cool as it's activated. The paint isn't as clean, and the clear plastic isn't the best either. I don't know if it shows, but it looks kind of like scratched up and dirty a little bit in some of it. But generally, it's okay. It sells itself on the design just fine. I see at the edge here, the whip just going through. I don't know if it's a metal rod or it's painted to look metal, but yeah, it looks alright. And it serves to make the figure itself better. Again, this is on a ball joint, which is weird because then I can sort of pose it around, but I'm not quite sure what's good. The part is decently heavy as well, so I don't know how this will hold up over time. But generally, I don't mind it at all. It's pretty cool. I kind of wish that it had the colouring of the first sword and the dynamic motion of this effect, just because I don't really agree with the yellow that much. It's just a bit odd. I think it's just a touch too bright, but generally it's not bad. It, like I said, it fixes one of the problems of the figure, which is it's not sort of dynamic enough. So instead of it being like a ready pose about to attack, this is just finished the attack, or the attack is literally about to come out any second. And yeah, I think that looks really cool. Just helps the silhouette so much more. It's a major help for the silhouette because it was just a bit boring. And the way that you're meant to view it, the sword sort of was lost before because it was sort of at an angle, so you didn't see the detail so well. Like that, you sort of miss a lot of that sword, but like this, you do definitely get to see way more of it, which is cool. But yeah, that's pretty much all we've got. In terms of issues that I've got with the figure, like I said, don't really agree with two of the colours, which is the hair and the secondary sword, but otherwise everything else is really cool. They've gone different steps that I didn't think they'd go, like the stockings here. I thought they'd just paint the details or use a decal or something, but that's actually sculpted in detail, which is way more than I ever thought they could or would have done, and it sort of shows why the figure is more of a premium price. Almost all of the work seems to have gone into the stockings and the outfit itself, as well as this first sword, whereas I don't think as much effort was put into this, but I think that that's mainly because it's very hard to pull off this effect without a massive amount of extra doodads like extra stands and things like that. But I think a clear base peg or something like that wouldn't have gone awry. I still don't know why it's ball pegs. It's just weird, but generally it is a good figure. And Fire Emblem Three Houses is a very good game. Fire Emblem Engage is an okay game, which is why I've got a statue of this and am not particularly interested in getting anything from Engage. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I will see you all next time.